Okay.
Yeah.
Now we are recording and we are ready to go. Okay. So this week's class is a very, very interesting class. It's a very special class because it coincides with the portion of the week. The portion of the week we discussed the birth of Esau, Jacob and Esau, and it talks about the blessings that Jacob, quote unquote, steals from Esau and the aftermath. So it's very appropriate that we speak about the story. And I'm going to ask everyone, if you have questions, to feel free to ask them. I'll stop at bridging points to take questions. But if you need to, feel free to to interject. Okay, let's see if we can get the view here, and so we can see everybody on the screen. Hold on, my mouse is not view, show view video panel. There you go. This way I can see you guys. Okay. One of the important points in the Torah is that. Are we going? Yes, no, down, nope. I'm having technical difficulties today.
Do you have a 12-year-old around to help you?
I know. Oh, no, unfortunately not. So one of the important points of the Torah is, like all the stories in the Torah, they require additional explanation. Most of the stories, any story in the Torah, actually, not most, all stories in the Torah, if you take them at face value, a lot of questions remain. They just don't make sense. So you need Hasidus, you need the Kabbalah, you need the esoterical and mystical explanations in order to make the pieces fit. This week's Torah portion and the topic which we are going to discuss tonight is a perfect example, because we have in this Torah portion multiple parts of the story that don't seem to make sense with what we know. So, for example, we have Jacob, who is the foremost of the forefathers. We are called the children of Israel, which is Jacob's other name, and we have him stealing blessings. You cannot just walk away from the Torah portion and reading this story and thinking that, yeah, that's okay, that makes sense. So let's dive into the story. And the text that we're going to read tonight are going to deal with three different parts of the story, all quoted in this week's parsha. We have the birth of Jacob and Esau, Jacob and Esau, Jacob and Esau. We have the story of the blessings. That's going to be separate text. And then we have the aftermath when Esau realized that he was deceived and how he approaches his father. So without further ado, we're going to show lesson video 1. And this is going to be the text 1 on page 78. You can follow along. And this is where it's supposed to go. Let me mute.
After many years of barrenness, Isaac and Rebekah's prayers are answered, and Rebekah conceives. But this is no ordinary pregnancy.
The children struggled within her, and she said, "If so, why am I thus?" And she went to inquire of God. God said to her, "2 nations are in your womb, and 2 kingdoms from your insides will diverge. Kingdom will overpower kingdom, and the elder will serve the younger." Her days to give birth were fulfilled, and behold, there were twins in her womb. The first one came out ruddy, his entirety as a hairy mantle, and they called his name Esau. After that, his brother came out, and his hand was grasping Esau's heel, and he called his name Jacob. The lads grew up. Esau was a man who knows game, a man of the field. And Jacob was a wholesome man, a dweller of tents. Isaac loved Esau for the game in his mouth, and Rebekah loved Jacob.
All right, so from the very beginning, as you can see, there is a struggle. It says that Yaakov, Yitzchak, and Rivka could not have children, and then they finally get pregnant, and Rivka feels pain, and she goes to a rabbi. So the famous question that is asked is, if a woman has pain from her labor, why are you going to a rabbi? Why don't you go to the doctor? And you feel kicking. Here she was praying for children, and she wanted to have children. Now miraculously she gets pregnant after 10 years, and now she's complaining. It doesn't seem to make sense. Why is Rivka complaining? So you see over here that Rivka realizes that something's wrong, something's not right. There's an eternal struggle. There's a big showdown going on over here. So he goes to the prophet, and actually it was Noah's son, and she tells him, and he tells her, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 kingdoms from your insides will diverge. Kingdom will overpower kingdom. These are not just regular children. This is a battle of epic proportions, and it's playing out in your womb. And Rivka is told that kingdom will overpower kingdom. And what does that mean? Rashi explains it's referring to that when Yaakov representing one kingdom and Esau representing another kingdom, and when one rises, one will fall. So the struggle is not only when they're born or when they grow up, they come into their own. The struggle is even in the womb, and that is why when they're born, we find that Esau comes out first and Yaakov comes out second, holding on to Esau's heel, to imply that he was trying to hold back from Esau becoming the firstborn. In fact, the reason why he is called Yaakov, because Yaakov has the name Akev, which means heel, because he came out holding his brother's heel. And now here we go. And then the next difference we see is something very interesting. Esau is a man in the field; he's a hunter. Yaakov sits in the tent and he studies. But Rivka, who does Rivka love? Rivka loves Yaakov, and Esau, and Yitzchak loves Esau. Now the fact that the fact that Rivka loved Yaakov, that makes sense. The kid sits in school, gets good grades, comes home, does his homework, never gets into trouble. That's a dream for every parent. Obviously, Rivka is going to love Yaakov. But the fact that Esau is loved by Yitzchak, that is a little more difficult to understand. So Rashi says 2 reasons. He says he was game in his mouth. So Rashi says, number 1, it could be the there we go. That game in his mouth means that Yitzchak would like the delicious food that Esau prepared for him. Another one is that Yitzchak was fooled by Esau, because Esau would ask him these questions to lead Yitzchak on, to make him think that Esau was more religious than he really was, more observant and more serious and more pious than he really was. So we have over here not only the difference between Yitzchak and Esau, we also have a difference between Rivka and Yitzchak. And interestingly enough, these 2 differences are interconnected. We're going to see the difference in approach between Rivka and Yitzchak is also reflected in the difference between Esau and Yaakov. Before we move on to the next text, any questions? Yay, nay? Okay. If you don't interrupt me, I'll take it as a nay.
Yep, no questions.
Okay. Well, that's, yeah, you have one parent favoring another parent totally against 2020, and everyone's fine with it. All right, must be a bunch of old timers.
We didn't say we were fine with it. We just didn't have any questions.
All right, so we're going to ask more questions. That's just the first batch of questions. Now it's time for text text number 2 on page 80, and you can go now. It's supposed to work. Did before. No? What do you do? It was working fine before.
It came to pass when Isaac was old and his eyes were dimmed of sight, and he called his elder son Esau, and he said to him, "Here, please, I have grown old. I do not know the day of my death. Now, please, pick up your implement, your sword and your bow, and go out to the field and trap game for me. Make for me delicious food such as I love, and bring it to me, and I will eat, in order that my soul should bless you before I die." Rebekah was listening as Isaac spoke to his son Esau, and Rebekah said to her son Jacob, "Listen to my voice, to that which I am commanding you. Go now to the flock and take for me from there 2 goodly goat kids, and I will prepare them as delicious food for your father, such as he loves. You will bring to your father, and he will eat, in order that he should bless you before his death." Jacob said to his mother Rebekah, "Here, my brother Esau is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man. Perhaps my father will feel me, and I will be in his eyes as a trickster, and I will bring upon myself a curse and not a blessing." And his mother said to him, "Your curse is upon me, my son. Only listen to my voice and go take for me." Rebekah took the desirable garments of her elder son Esau, and she dressed her younger son Jacob. And she dressed the goat kid skins on his hands and upon the smoothness of his neck. He came to his father, and he said, "Who are you, my son?" And Jacob said to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn." Isaac said to Jacob, "Please approach, and I will feel you, my son. Are you this, my son, Esau, or not?" Jacob approached his father Isaac, and he felt him, and he said, "The voice is the voice of Jacob, and the hands are the hands of Esau." He did not recognize him, for his hands were as the hands of his brother Esau, hairy, and he blessed him. "God shall give to you of the dew of the heavens, and the fat of the earth, and an abundance of grain and wine. Nations will serve you, and kingdoms will bow to you. You shall be a master over your brothers, and your mother's son shall bow to you. Those who curse you shall be cursed, and those who bless you shall be blessed."
Okay, so here we have a very, very troubling part of the story. That Yitzchak expresses a desire to bless Esau, and then Rivka overhears and dresses up Yaakov, and Yaakov comes in, says he is Esau, and he gets the blessing. So now that we reviewed 2 major incidents in the story, let us start with some questions. Before, you have any questions before I present the questions?
No questions.
Everyone just is okay with the way it is. All right. Here we go. Number 1. Question number 1. Rivka's pregnant, and she's told that there's 2 kingdoms. What is the significance are the kingdoms, and why, and what are these kingdoms fighting over? Why do they say you have two kids, can't get along, calls them kingdoms? And what is it that exactly the struggle, what is the struggle all about? Question number 2. Question number 2? No? Technology is good when it works, but when it doesn't work, there you go. Question number 2. If Yaakov was destined to become the firstborn, as we say, right, he was holding on because he felt he was entitled to be the firstborn, and later on he tells Esau to sell it to him, and then Yitzchak blesses him because he's the firstborn, because Esau sold that firstborn, and Rivka believes him to be the rightful firstborn as well. How come he wasn't born first? Why does life have to be such a struggle that for generations from Yaakov until now, the struggle to gain the top position? Question number 3. There you go. How could Yitzchak be favor Esau? I mean, we know Yitzchak was blind. We're not talking about over here only a physical blindness. Yitzchak was not a dumb creature. Yitzchak is one of the forefathers. In fact, it says when Mashiach comes, we're going to call Yitzchak our forefather. So how could it be that Yitzchak didn't realize who Esau was? It's Yitzchak fooled so easily, and it's not like Yitzchak doesn't have anyone to compare him to. Yitzchak studied Torah with Yaakov all the time. How could Yitzchak possibly favor Esau over Yaakov? Question number 4. We see over here that Yitzchak favors Esau because he has game in his mouth. And then later, when Yitzchak asks Esau to go hunting to bring him food, obviously this hunted game and delicious food is something that Yitzchak focuses on, and in order for him to be blessed, and then Yaakov has to bring in food in order to take the blessing. Why does delicious food, quote unquote, delicious food, play such an important part in the story? Question number 5. Are we here?
Rabbi?
Yeah.
Rabbi, can I ask a question or maybe make an answer? If you look at the situation with the apparent deception of Isaac,
Yeah.
you have a situation where I would imagine both brothers knew that the firstborn, who was Esau, was supposed to get the blessing. Now you have a situation where...
Hold on. Esau sold his firstborn.
All right, but he knew. All right, so but he still knew that he was supposed to get the blessings. He sold it to Jacob. Now, does Isaac? I'm sorry. He sold it to.
Yeah, he said it.
Yeah,
He said,
to Jacob. Now, does Isaac know that?
Okay, so I'm going to let the class answer your questions, okay? As we go on, we're going to talk about the different types of blessings and what Isaac knew, what Isaac didn't know. You're asking very, very good questions.
Yeah,
but we're going to allow...
Can I just finish my question?
Oh, so you're finished. Yeah, go ahead.
No. So you have a situation where a son is coming to Isaac, and he has some of the qualifications of Esau, and he has some of the qualifications of Jacob.
Yeah.
If it were so, I would think that Isaac would deduce that this must be Jacob, because Esau would not need to disguise his voice to sound like Jacob if Esau understood that, he was the firstborn, he was entitled to get the blessings. So I would think that Isaac would determine that since it was like kacha, it was, some of the qualifications of Jacob and some of the qualifications of Esau or characteristics, that he would deduce you know what? This is probably Jacob trying to deceive me. And that's okay, because I think Jacob is really the one meant to be the leader.
You're saying there's Esau would sound like Esau and dress like Esau. Yaakov would feel like Esau, but Esau has no reason to sound like Yaakov. I see what you're saying, but you have to remember also that Yaakov never did a deceitful thing in his life until this point. So that's why maybe it took Esau by surprise. Yitzchak by surprise. But we're going to get into it. But let's get into the Hasidic discussion. A lot of what you're saying is going to be discussed in later on in the lesson. The last question is, it's on the board. If Yaakov is entitled to the blessing because Esau sold the blessing, or because he's entitled because he is a better person, which he was, why didn't Yaakov or Rivka go over and explain the situation to Yitzchak straight out? Why the need for duplicity and deception by Rivka on Rivka's part and Yaakov's part? What's the deeper meaning that the blessings had to be obtained by deceptive means? Okay. So this week's lesson has a lot of Chassidus, has a lot of Kabbalah. So you really, as I say in Yiddish, you have to halt up. Let's go through the two kingdoms. We're going to start in order. Question number one. It's important to take note, and we mentioned this many times, that the Torah is not a history book. Torah comes from the word Hira, which means guide. It means everything in the Torah is a template. So Yaakov and Esau, these aren't just people that appear in Jewish history, and because Jacob is our forefather, we talk about him. Yaakov and Esau are templates. Yaakov is a template for the Jewish people. Esau is a template for Gentiles and anti-Semites, and it's a struggle between the Jewish people and the enemy of the Jewish people. As you can see on figure 3.1 on page 83, as you will see, Esau is epitomized by Rome, and Yaakov by Judea. So because we know there was a big conflict between Rome and Judea, the Romans actually made it in. The Edomites were really, Esau lived in the southeastern part of Israel. They were a big tribe over there. And it was through the Edomites that Rome came into the land of Israel. And once they came into Israel, there was oppression and harassment and destruction. So that's on the surface. Then we have in daily life, Esau represents materialism, wanting more for me, and Jacob represents spirituality. In the internal self, Esau is all about realizing all about me, what I can do, but what makes me feel good. And Jacob is all about self-transcendence, about doing something for God, putting your ego aside. And finally, on the cosmic level, and we're going to talk about this at length tonight, Esau represents tohu, chaos, and Yaakov represents tikkun. Tikkun represents order. Okay, let's go through it step by step. The first couple, two or three, I'm going to go through quickly, and because we'll spend more time on the last two. First of all, any questions before I go on? Are we good?
Good.
Ellen, want to ask Gabriel? Good. Okay. So Yaakov is the father. Yaakov is the father of the Jewish people. We're called Israel. Esau is the father of Edom. We find Edom associated with Rome and Midrash and in the Torah and in the Talmud. And there's a big power struggle. There's a big power struggle. This is the meaning of the two nations, the kingdoms, as the prophecy was told to Rivka. He says, two nations, two kingdoms are in your womb. So we have the great nation of the Jewish people on one side, and we have the Romans on the other side. Now, initially, the struggle doesn't seem too much of a struggle because we have the Jewish people that powerless, homeless, a tiny nation. On the other hand, we have the vast, powerful empire which dominated the whole known world, which is the father of Western civilizations. So when they clash head on, we know that Rome conquered Judea, defeated, destroyed the temple, decimated the Jewish people, and exiled them. So you say it's not much of a struggle. However, if you fast forward and you take the grand scope, the grand view of history, the Jewish people demonstrate power of influence, and not so much by population, size, or wealth, or military. But however, we're still here. We're on the scene. We're having an influence until today, and I guess it's a very interesting discussion. You can say who's winning the battle, who's the more dominant influence in human history. As you can, let's turn to the discussions. Questions for discussions we'll get to in a second. Questions for discussion on page 84. What influences of historical Rome can you identify in the American society today? What influences of historical Judea can you identify in world or American society today? Number 3, which is the more dominant influence in American society today? What do you say?
Football.
What's Roman influence today?
Football.
Football. That's very good. Yes, it's true. See, that's why we do our classes on Tuesday night. We don't want, God forbid, anyone to miss out on any football games. What's an influence of Judean on American society? Chabad.
They have a Bible in the courtroom to take an oath upon.
That's a good one. Yeah, who do you think is more dominant today, Roman or Judean?
Roman.
Huh?
That depends. That's a Louis.
That's what?
That's a Louis. It depends.
That's a Louis. It depends. All right. Nice Chabad answer. So let's analyze some of the personalities that the different societies are known for. So we have the Roman society. The Roman society represents the quest for power and recognition, self-aggrandizement, the love of luxury, that the bigger is better. Texas, right? The attitude for you got to be tall skyscrapers, the biggest mansion, the largest monument, art and all that, architecture, entertainment, technology. That's the Roman attitude. What's the Jewish influence? The Jewish influence is the belief in God, the concept of self-discipline, morality, generosity, social justice, commitment, mutual responsibility, pursuit of peace. So I guess this is the battle. I mean, I think we can say it's happening in society today. It's happening in society right now. So that's number 1. The second difference on page 83, the figure 3.1, was materialism versus spirituality. So on a deeper level, let's take it a step deeper. On a deeper level, Yaakov represents spirituality. Esau represents material. They embody totally 2 different worldviews, 2 approaches to life. And we see it in the Torah. When Yitzchak is confused, if you go back to page 82, lines 45 to 46, when Yitzchak is confused, he says, the hands are the hands of Esau. That is one way of doing something. And the voice is the voice of Yaakov. That represents a different way of doing something. So Yitzchak likes the sound. He has a sound like Yaakov, but the feel of Esau. And you see what the Midrash says in text 3 on page 85. Midrash puts it this way. 2 legacies did Isaac bequeath to his 2 sons. To Jacob, he gave the voice, as it is written, the voice is the voice of Jacob. And to Esau, he gave the hands, as written, the hands are the hands of Yaakov. And this is what is confusing him. So we have over here, the hands are the hands of Esau. That represents things that are material. What does it mean? That approach says that whatever is material is real. If I can put a dollar value on it, if I can feel it, if I can measure it, that's real. Everything else is just fantasy. The spiritual part of it argues that ideas, principles, feelings, experience have true enduring value. So let's take, for example, some people that'll say, you know, I'm going to work hard. I'm work hard, and I'm going to have a lot of money, because your value, your life experience is based on how much money you have in the bank. Some people will say you have that money and do what with it? So I'll take the money, I'll go traveling, I'll have an experience. I won't have any money in the bank, but it's not tangible, you can't measure it, but it's an experience. Same thing is sort of on the spiritual versus material. Esau is this material, right? And it's true. It doesn't mean it's not true. Obviously, if something is valuable, it's valuable. And Yaakov has a point also. Something that a principle, an idea, an experience that has value. And this is the battle that's happening between Esau and Yaakov. Which one is the more significant? Esau is saying matter is valuable. Yaakov is saying spirit is valuable. And this battle happens not only between how we like to experience life. Also this battle, the struggle happens inside of us. The Alter Rebbe Shneir Zalman Obliadi discusses in Tanya that we all have two identities, two consciousness. We have what's called the godly soul, the nefesh halokit, and we have the animal soul, the nefesh habahamit. And each one of them are very, very different in the way they are inclined. One is inclined towards one way of life, one is inclined to the other way of life. These are the two souls. So the animal soul is into self-fulfillment and self-enhancement. It only wants to do what's good for itself. While the godly soul is striving to minimize its ego, to escape its ego, to escape its self-interest, and to unite with the sublime, to unite with the above. So Esau is the animal soul, and Yaakov is the godly soul. Esau representing, I want to do what's good for me. So, for example, going back to the story, Esau comes in tired, and he's exhausted, just committed his first murder. Yaakov is making food. Esau says, give me some of that food. And Yaakov says to him, sell me the birthright. And Esau says, what do I care about the birthright later? I want to feel good now. That's Esau. That is Esau. Yaakov realizes that I'm going to do what's best, and he puts himself aside. Sometimes we're going to see he puts himself in tough situations, like deceiving his father for a greater cause. Any questions? Because we're about to get Kabbalistic.
Hey, can I make a suggestion here?
Yeah, sure.
Have you got the mouse in your hand for your video screen?
Why?
If you move the mouse up to the top and click on View Options, and then in View Options, you click on Hide Video Panel, we will not get a black line down the side of our screen.
Well, you want me to hide it?
Yeah, hide that
Why?
on your...
No, but then when the class is recorded, you can't see anybody. This way the class is recorded, we see that people are actually in the class.
That's not what the class is going to see. If the class sees what I see, they're just going to see a black bar where you see...
Okay, so we'll see next time. Okay, let's go. All right, now we're ready to explore the fourth interpretation of Yaakov and Esau. All right, referred to the cosmic level. All right, let's get Kabbalistic. When God created the world, he did it in stages. The first stage was the world of what's called Tohu, chaos. The second stage was the level of Tikkun, which is order, rectification. first Hashem created this reality of Tayu, and it wasn't sustainable, and that shadow that broke apart, and then Hashem created the reality, the world of Tikkun, and as a result, we live today in a Tikkun reality. What is a Tayu reality? What is a Tikkun reality? So before we get into the text, I first gotta preface it. That we're not talking in absolute terms of good and bad. That means everything has an advantage, an upside, and a disadvantage. It all depends on how you utilize it. So the world of chaos, for example, is not bad, and the world of Tikkun is not good. It's all a question of when it comes into our lives and how we and into our flawed existence, and how is it going to be expressed? Is it going to be expressed in a positive way or in a negative way? So both Tohu and Tikkun have its positive and negative or upside advantages and disadvantages. That's number one. Number two, we are not going, this is a deep concept discussed at length in various texts in Kabbalah and Chassidus. We are not going to cover the entire gamut of this topic. Just a short overview. It's just to express these different types of Esau and Yaakov, and what the struggle was about, and what the confusion with Yitzchak and Rivka was about. Okay, with that in mind, let's go into text number 4 on page 86. The Rebbe Rashab, fifth Chabad Rebbe, says like this: to understand the root of the difference between Tayu and Tikkun, and how Tayu comes to rectify and refine Tikkun, serving as a form to a substance. This is important. These two paragraphs are very important. As is known, why is it called the world of chaos? Because the light, the energy, over here light means godly energy. The light of energy was so extreme, powerful, and intense. And so what prevailed was a state of abundant light, abundant energy, and not the ability to contain it, scant vessels. Because of that, we're using words over here. It's not actual light and vessels. We're just using terms that we can relate to. Because of that, they shattered and fell. So if you try to pour a massive bucket of water into a cup, it's going to overflow it, might even break it. Or think about it of electricity. You try to send 210 into a 220 into a 110, it's going to fry the circuit. Too much energy, not the ability to contain it. Following
we're talking about the world before Noah and after Noah.
We're talking. Well, good catch, by the way. Very good. But before that before Noah and after Noah is a micro of this. But we're talking even before the creation of the world on a grander scale. It's interesting, by the way, that the first 2,000 years, according to Kabbalah, are called the time of chaos. Abraham is born 1948. The second 2,000 years are called the time period of knowledge, because that's when Avram comes, and we have the giving of the Torah. The Torah was in the year 2448, and in those 2,000 years we have the Talmud and the Mishnah. Yeah, but now we're talking preceding the creation of the world, the steps when God created the world. But see, that's a good one. Following that, Tikkun reality was made with scant light, lesser energy, and abundant vessels. With that result, the lights are sustained within the vessels. Okay, so in the language of Kabbalah, because we got to explain what it means: light and vessels, a lot of light, less vessels. So the language of Kabbalah, light is the essence of a thing. It's the energy behind it, and the vessel is what gives it shapes and executes it. So, for example, if you look at figure 3.2, you have an idea, right? And you want to express that idea. This is on page 87. You want to express the idea. You want to express, if you want to express the idea, you have to put it into words. Now, automatically, words are a limiting container because what you say, hold on, I need to get a charger. My phone is, give me 1 second. So I'll talk off camera for just a moment. So when you have an idea, which could be a great idea, but when you're putting it into words, it automatically is a limiting container. It has to be. That is the very nature. That is the very nature of what words are. Words are a limiting container. But if you don't put it in the container, no one will get the idea. The same thing was with melody. Where does music come from? Music comes from deep inside you. But if you don't put notes on the page, same thing with business, right? You have a vision, an objective of what is it that you want to do, right? We have a Chabad house. We want to build a space for Jewish education, bringing everyone close. Everyone is welcome, regardless of background, strategy. You love every Jew, no matter what. But it has to go in an organized way. Organization automatically means structure, vessel, limit, relationship, love, but it has to be mutual respect for each other. Religion, you serve God, you love God, but there has to be rituals. You can't just do whatever you want in the name of the religion. There has to be rules. Does this make sense to everybody?
Yep.
Because if not, please, interrupt me. Let me make sure that the phone's plugged in. So now, is one better? Is one better than the other? No, one can't exist without the other. You need a book that has words but no ideas. Is just sheets with a whole bunch of mumbo jumbo printed on the page. So ideas without words is not a book. It goes together. Two people that love each other but no vessels. There's no interaction and there's no mutual supporting action. It's just an idea. It's not a relationship. On the other hand, a relationship that is devoid of feeling and passion is not a relationship either, right? So we have a struggle here. Where are we at? We have a struggle here. On one hand, the light, the energy wants to go forward and burst, and the vessel is limiting it. That's on one hand of the struggle. On the other hand, the vessel likes the way it is, doesn't want to be moved, be pushed. And I see what you're saying. The black bar, see that? I see over here on the reflection. So the light is pushing. It's pushing it. So here we have these two modes. All right. I think I'm a little behind here. Oh yeah, there we go. So here we have the two modes. So we have the tikkun reality, and we have the tohu, the reality. And the difference between the tikkun and tohu reality is really a ratio. That's what it is. It's all about ratio. How much light, how much energy, and how much containment. The tohu is tremendous energy and very little containment. The tikkun reality is less energy and plenty of containment. So which one's better? Come on, Ira. Ira with the sleep. Which one's better?
It depends.
It depends, right? It depends on how you look at it.
It depends on how big the vessel is and what it's filled.
Reality.
Rum, I'm all set.
What?
If the vessel has some rum in it, we're in good shape.
See, I like you. You haven't, even though you haven't been to the show in a while.
That's right.
You still have your Chabad in you.
I think if you went on pouring.
So we're going to start discussing with the tikkun reality, because that's the model that we can relate to us, because we live in a structured world, in a model where there's a less energy and more containment. That means, what does it mean that this means that the vessels, the light is absorbed into the vessel. So, for example, the text of the book adheres strictly to the rules of grammar and the relationship. In a tikkun reality, the relationship is orderly and tranquil, and each part dutifully fulfills their role in the relationship. So, what is the question for discussion? There you go, harmonious. So the advantage of the tikkun is that it's harmonious. What's the disadvantage of tikkun? Now, this is the question for discussion. What's the disadvantage of tikkun? Anybody?
It could lead to the stifling of imagination, ingenuity.
There you go. It's static. It's boring. No passion. It's predictable. There's growth, but it's predictable growth. And it never supersedes its charted course, right? It never goes into overdrive. It never lets go. It's boring. So it's harmonious, but lacks passion. It's boring. Now let's look at the tohu. The tohu, which is a tremendous energy, but not enough vessels, not enough limiting containers. So on one hand over here, you have unbridled joy and everything is great, and the drive to compete and the drive to achieve, and that's unbelievable, right? It's innovative. It's always striving for more. It's always overreaching its own limits. What's the disadvantage of tohu? Nope. What's the disadvantage? Come on, guys. By the way, I'm only hearing from the Chabad of Pembroke Pines, guys. What about the Chabad of Cooper City? You can chime in. Don't be embarrassed. I won't tell her opinion on you. This is a discussion. Everyone's invited to take part. So I'm gonna talk to myself. All right. If I talk to myself, I drink with myself. The disadvantage of tohu is that because it's always striving for more and everything more, it's fickle and lacks discipline and focus. And on one hand, it's wanting to do this, and on the other hand, at the same time, it's wanting to do another thing, and they're at odds with each other, and it results in conflict and strife. So what do we see? We see very, very, very easily that each one has an advantage, and each one has a disadvantage. So which one do you think has more advantage, and which one has more of a disadvantage? Which one is more hazardous? Put it that way. Which one do you rather, tohu or tikkun?
Well, tohu would be more hazardous, wouldn't it?
Tohu is more hazardous, because if you look at the examples in figure 3.2, which was on page 87, right? If you're looking at through the tohu model, so a marriage is aflame with love, but no mutually supportive action, no mutual respect. What does a marriage look like in 5 years down the line? You have a business with a vision, but no strategy. What happens to this is Michael J's business, project management. But you can have a vision, but no strategy. What happens to the business, Michael J?
Everybody's out of a job looking for new work.
And with that, right? Or right, you have a group of people, right? They formulate a lofty ideology and about religion, but no rules, no regulations. What's going to happen? Well, either a whole thing's going to collapse, or what we see today, people doing things in the name of religion. Why? Because there's no rules. They're doing it in the name of some, and because you have God or so your religious entity backing you, then you're off the hook. So Tohu is very, very hazardous if not reined in. The chaos is very hazardous if not reined in by the tikkun, the order. So now, so we have over here Tohu mode of existence. We have the tikkun mode of existence. So let's play God for a second. If you were God, which world would you create? Well,
Both?
right, exactly. So God created both. God created both. So now, going back to text number 4 on page 86, first God created the world of chaos with abundant light and abundant energy and not enough vessels. And then after the idea fell apart, then he created the world of tikkun, of harmony, with less light, less energy, and more structure, in order that everything should work. So now the question, which we kind of had a similar question last week. If you look at page 88, the question that's bothering you should be bothering you: if the world of chaos was prone to fail, why make it in the first place?
You have to have, if chaos represents passion, you have to have passion in order to bring up new ideas and advance society.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff.
That's creativity.
So because like we said before, it's not a question of good and bad. Each one has its advantages. If Hashem would have created the world in only one vein, we would never be able to tap into the advantage of the other. So Hashem creates the world of Tohu, and then he creates the world of Tikkun in order for us to utilize the advantages of both modes. So now we live in a world of Tikkun. We can live a world of Tikkun, of order, but we can tap into we can draw on those powerful forces of Tohu, of passion, of drive to accomplish, to do something, to go beyond what we're used to. Why? Because that element, that mode did exist at one point. So the exercise on page 89, which you can write a note for yourself: what are Tohu elements in our lives, and what are Tikkun elements in our life? This is page 89. So now let's go back to figure 3.1. I'll put it up here on the screen. Figure 3.1, I'm sharing it on the screen. Tohu with Esau. Esau is after materialism, after self-realization. That's Tohu. And Jacob, spirituality, self-transcendent, and tikkun. So the wild, untamed Esau, right? The person who's willing to sell his firstborn. Why? For a meal. That's Esau. Jacob, it says, is a dweller in tents, structure, order. He personifies the world, the discipline of tikkun. In our own existence, we have the animal soul. The animal soul is going to want. It's going to want, whether or not it's destructive, and whether or not it's healthy. It's good for the person. Doesn't make a difference. It's going to want. The divine soul only wants to do something that is constructive. So now, the question for discussion on page 89. Which are the more powerful forces in our life? And this is a question we all have to ask ourselves. Tohu elements or the tikkun elements? Which one do you think? Which one's more powerful? Tohu or tikkun?
It depends on which stage of life you're in.
That's true. I was actually thinking about that. That's true. But generally speaking, you look around.
Generally, I think that without one, you can't have the other.
That's true. But what do you think is more prevalent? in the world today?
Tohu.
Tohu, chaos. We look around, we see tohu everywhere. We have people, that we have people who are so energetic and ambitious. Everyone's trying to get rich. Everyone's trying to make $1 million yesterday. And how many of those people are trying, to save the world? But we need tohu, because what has impacted our life? What is it with the fact that we're talking now on the phone, right? Through the Zoom, right? Yesterday, a couple of days ago, people went up to space. The fact that we have modern medicine and automobiles and air travel, all that's all tohu. The drive to accomplish, the quest for fame and power and wealth, or desire to better the world. So why does it seem that the world of the elements of tohu are so much more powerful than tikkun? So you can say, okay, that's human nature. But Kabbalah says, no, let's go deeper than just answering, that's human nature. Because according to Kabbalah, things are never the way they seem. Everything goes back to its origins, its divine process in creation. Remember, what came first? Tohu, right? Tohu, chaos. Then I'm sure you've heard the saying, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. So in the world of Kabbalah, that is also true. The holier they are, the higher they are, the closer to God they are, the lower they fall. So again, when you're talking about spiritual Kabbalistic terms, before and after, that's not in relation to time. We're talking about before, we'll talk about closer to God, and after, further away from God, or less of God's presence. So the fact that tohu was created first, it means it is higher. It is higher than tikkun. So, for example, the animal soul, its root, Kabbalah explains, is even higher than the godly soul. So the tohu creation, tohu mold, was God's original creation, making it more of the primal reality, more of the reality. We have tremendous of God's energy, and no way to contain it. Only afterwards, later, or on a lesser level. Oops, that's good. On a lesser level, we have tikkun, which allow to give structure. So the reason why it's a lot easier to dive into a hamburger and candy than it is to exercise, or a lot easier to waste time watching TV than to sit down and learn, is because we're fighting an uphill battle. Because tohu came first, and its roots are higher. So question number 2 was, if you remember, question number 2 was, if Yaakov is more important, and Yaakov is supposed to be the great guy that he is, why wasn't he born first? Because since we learned just now that Esau represents the world, the mode of tohu, of chaos, and Yaakov represents the mode of tikkun, of order. And what came first? Chaos, tikkun. So who had to be born first? Esau had to be born first. And then only after Yaakov had to be born first. And Yaakov is constantly battling Esau, because that's the battle. The battle, because that came first. So when we try to improve, we try to bring order into our life. What's that line in science? That the natural state of the world is disorganization, right? There's a theory to it, guys. If you know what I'm talking about,
Entropy. Entropy.
There you go. Thank you. Right? You make your room, it lasts 5 minutes, but to make a mess out of your room, I know I have 6 kids. If you don't believe in the theory, I'll gladly send them to your house, and they will prove it in about 5 minutes.
No need. Thank you.
No need. So that's why it's such a struggle. It's such a struggle to make order, because Esau it comes before. Esau is more powerful. The chaos, the powerful chaotic world of Tehu is only followed later by a younger, so to speak, gentler and harmonious mode of Tikkun. Okay, everything so far so good.
Yep.
Okay, now that we understand Esau and Yaakov and the struggle between Yaakov and Esau, so now the question is, what are they fighting over, and why must there be a struggle between two kingdoms? We understand the kingdom now because Esau is an ideal and Yaakov is an ideal. Each one of them represents, an entity, but because we see that each one has its advantages, and because we see that each one has its positive elements in both spiritual and our material lives, and for example, both our animal soul and our godly soul are necessary, because if you have a godly soul, you don't have a body putting on tefillin. If you have no godly soul, the animal soul would only be selfish. So, but why does it have to be a struggle? Why can't they just, coexist, like the bumper sticker says? In the words of Rodney King, why can't we all just get along? Right? I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember that. Gets into the this is going to answer the question. This gets into the answer of the difference in a view between Yitzchak and Rivka. Yitzchak loves Esau. Rivka loves Yaakov. What's going on? If you recall, from the blessings that Yitzchak gave to Esau, the blessing that Yitzchak gave to Yaakov, he blesses him with the dew of the heaven and the fat of the land. But Rivka wants to make sure that Yaakov gets those blessings. Now, before we get into it, and we explain more, let's look at the third part of the story, which is on text page 90, text number 5.
And it was, just as Jacob was going out from the presence of his father, that his brother Esau came from his hunt. And he said to his father, "My father should get up and eat of the game of his son, in order that your soul should bless me." And his father Isaac said to him, "Who are you?" And he said, "I am your firstborn son Esau." Isaac trembled an exceedingly great trembling, and he said, "Who then is the one who trapped game and brought it to me? And I ate of it all before you had come, and I blessed him. Also blessed shall he be." As Esau heard the words of his father, he cried an exceedingly great and bitter cry, and he said to his father, "Bless me too, my father." And he said, "Your brother came with cunning and took your blessing." And he said, "Is this why his name was called Jacob? Twice he has deceived me. He took my birthright, and here now he has taken my blessing." And he said, "Have you not reserved a blessing for me?" Isaac answered and said to Esau, "Here I have placed him master to you, and all his brothers I have given to him as servants. And with grain and wine I have supported him. And for you, then, what shall I do, my son?" And Esau said to his father, "Have you only one blessing, my father? Bless me, also me, my father." And Esau raised his voice, and he wept. And his father Isaac answered, and he said to him, "Here, the fat of the land will be your settlement, and of the dew of the heavens above. By your sword you will live, and your brother you will serve. And it will be that when you are aggrieved, you will cast off his yoke from upon your neck."
Rebekah finds out that Esau is so angry over having been cheated out of the blessings that he is plotting to kill Jacob. So she convinces Isaac that it is time for Jacob to travel to her hometown, Haran, to find a wife.
Isaac called Jacob and he blessed him, and he instructed him, and he said to him, "Arise and go to Paddan Aram, and take yourself a wife from there, from the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. And the Almighty God will bless you and make you fruitful and multiply you, and you will become a community of peoples. And he will grant you the blessing of Abraham to you, and to your seed with you, to inherit you the land of your dwelling, which God has given to Abraham."
Okay. Let's dissect this so carefully, okay? Usually, when we look at the story, we think this is what happened. Yeah, God blessed Avram, right? And he said, "You're going to be the father of this nation." And then Avram had these two sons, Ishmael and Yitzchak. And Avram chose Yitzchak and said, "You're going to carry on the torch. You're going to carry on the mission of spreading monotheism into the world." Now, Yitzchak is nearing what he thinks is the end of his life. And he chooses Esau to give these blessings. And then what does Yaakov do? Yaakov comes and sneaks in and takes the blessings. So we think that Yaakov steals the blessings of Abraham. But if you look closely at the text, and let's examine the evidence, something doesn't make sense. When Esau comes in, and he says, and he tells his father that Yaakov got the blessings. Yaakov says, Yitzchak says about Yaakov. He says, and he trembled, the great trembling, and he declared, "And blessed should Yaakov be." What happens then? And then Esau breaks down and says, "Bless me too. I also want it." It's one of the most emotional episodes in the Torah. Esau is begging his father for a blessing. "Bless me too. Have you not reserved a blessing for me?" And Yitzchak says, "I'm sorry, kid. I gave everything to Yaakov. I gave him the dew of the heavens, the fat of the land. I gave him mastery of his brothers." And Esau is crying and says, "Please, you don't have one blessing for me?" And finally, Yitzchak says, "Okay, I'll give you dew of the heavens and fat of the land, but only under the rulership of Yaakov, and he will only be able to throw off the yoke of Yaakov when Yaakov doesn't exercise his mastery as he's supposed to." Then what happens at the end? Right at the end of the parsha, Yitzchak calls Yaakov, and he sends him to Haran because he's afraid Esau is going to kill him. And we find, if you look at text 53 through 59, we find that Yaakov gets another blessing. What happened? Yitzchak just told Esau that he has no blessings for him. And all of a sudden now, he says, "Almighty God will bless you. Another blessing, make you fruitful and multiply. You will become a community of peoples. He will grant you the blessing of Abraham to you and your seed afterwards." So it seems that Yitzchak did have another blessing after all. So how come he told Esau otherwise? So we see over here that there were always two blessings. There was the Abrahamic spiritual blessing, and then there was the physical material blessing, the dew of the heavens and the fat of the land. That Yitzchak's plan was to give the spiritual to Yaakov and the material to Esau. Now we can go and answer question number 3. Why did Yitzchak want to give Esau the brachas? Why was he fooled? The answer is he wasn't fooled. Yitzchak saw Esau in the primordial level. He saw Esau for what he is, the world of chaos. However, the potential of chaos is a lot greater than the potential of the world of tikkun. Yitzchak is thinking, if I can just get Esau right, Mashiach is going to come. Which that's the truth. Yitzchak wants to give the material Esau the material blessings so he can maximize his potential. Esau's the man of the field. Esau is the cunning hunter. Yaakov knows who Yitzchak knows who Yaakov is, the dweller of tents, the world of tikkun of order, and he knows who Esau is, and the man of the field. Yitzchak's plan is to give each brother their resources to fulfill their world. They should work in harmony with each other. Sounds good, right? So now we see one of the questions was why is it always talking about delicious food, hunted game, delicious food that Esau loved to Yitzchak? Because Yitzchak saw in Esau the ability to utilize, he was equipped to take the raw material of the material world and make delicious food. He was able to take the world around us and utilize it in the service. It was in the service of Hashem, and that's why he wants to. Am I behind him here? And that's why he wants to give Esau. He wants to give Esau the material blessing, and Yaakov Yaakov the spiritual blessing. Yitzchak says Yitzchak could give Yaakov the most lofty spiritual blessings about Avram learning and Torah, and that would have been unbelievable. But Yaakov, what does Yaakov do? Yaakov sees that in order for me to interact, I need to mimic at least a little bit. I need to come with delicious food to come with delicious food to Yitzchak. In order to be able to transform the world, I need to utilize the blessings of Esau in order to make the world a better place. So now, why did Yaakov have to get the blessings? Why couldn't they work together? Or put it this way: what would have happened if Esau would have got the physical blessing and Yaakov would have got the spiritual blessing? Look at text number 6. The Alter Rebbe writes, page 93. Yaakov is a realm of holiness. Without all this, he still would have received all the spiritual energies. Esau was never getting the blessings of Avram. But the first set of blessings granted him an increase of powers from the highest levels to obtain much grain and wine, referring to the laws and stories of Torah that become embodied in material garments and in the actions of mitzvahs. However, this is important, the end of text number 6. Had Jacob not received their blessing, the power of Torah would have extended only in the spiritual realm. Why did God put us here on this world? God did not put us on this world in order for us to live a spiritual life in the physical world. God wanted us to live a physical life, a holy physical life, a life but with holiness, physical. That means we have to put on the physical tefillin. We have to eat the challah. We have to eat the matzah, shake the lulav and esrog. So if Jacob would have just gotten the spiritual blessing, and Esau would have gotten just the physical blessing, then Yaakov would not have been able to impart an influence on the material world. They would have remained separate. Therefore, Yaakov has to get those blessings in order for the Torah to do its job. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So now we still have a question or two to answer. Why, if Yitzchak's idea is so great, how come Rivka doesn't share it? Or if Rivka knows about it, how come she doesn't tell Rivka? Because Rivka, you see, Yitzchak is an idealist. Yitzchak thinks of what the world should be. That Esau is going to utilize his potential to do his part. And Yaakov is going to utilize his potential to do his part. Walking side by side. But Rivka it understands that after the sin of the goal of the Garden of Eden, where good and bad are now intermeshed, it's too dangerous a game. If we give Esau that capability, it's very possible he's going to misuse it, abuse it, and never realize his full potential. Rivka sees Esau's corruption. Rivka sees Esau for who Esau really is. Yes, he has the potential for good. Yitzchak sees them in the primordial state. Rivka sees them how they are now. Yitzchak wants to shower Esau with blessings from all the supernal origins to give him the power. But Rivka understands, because Esau, she sees the way he is, he's only going to use those abilities to corrupt his behavior even further. So let's say I have a business that's failing. It's in the world of tohu, no strategy, and you give it an influx of cash. That's not going to help the business. It's only going to help it spiral out of control even more. Rivka realizes that the only one that can rein in Esau and help Esau to actualize his potential is Yaakov. And that's why Yaakov has to get the blessings. And he has to speak, in order to speak Yaakov's language. Yaakov has to be the leader for the team to work. They can't work side by side. Esau has to work for Yaakov. In order for the world of chaos, of tohu, to work, the world of tikkun has to be its master. Does all this add up?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So let's finish off. Let's try to bring it home.
What happens between Rebecca and Yitzhak?
Oh, what happens in Rebecca and Rivka? Yeah, the question is, we're going to get into a second. I think what you're really asking is, how come Rivka didn't walk into Yitzchak and say, you're wrong? Since when does a Jewish woman afraid to tell her husband, you're wrong? I have to sneak around you? You're wrong. End of story. Right? Why did she have to trick him? Just walk in and say, all right, you're wrong. Right? That's the question. That's really your question, right?
I guess so. Why didn't she set him straight?
Once she set him straight, right? You got to trick him. You make it sound like Yitzchak was never wrong. This is the first time. What are you talking about? He was wrong from the first day he got married. Right? Like if a husband has an opinion in a forest and his wife's not there to hear him, is he still wrong? Of course, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So before we get to that, because we're going to touch on that in a second, we didn't answer that question: why the deception? So in reality, what's going on over here is we all have the Esau and the Yaakov. We all have the Esau and the Yaakov inside of us. Did I jump ahead? Second? Oh, here we go. Yeah, we all have the Esau and the Yaakov inside of us. So Kabbalah explains it's not just a nice story. Okay, Kabbalah came, put it some. Oh, it's nice. No, the idea of Chassidus is we're taking a story in the Torah and we're trying to apply it into our daily life. So when you look at the mirror, you know who you're looking at. And when you go through times where you're struggling to control your impulses and desires, you know who you're contending with. You know your Esau, and you know you have to tap into the Yaakov. So it's not just on the surface. It's a nice story. You know, do I have time for a story? Okay, it's very late. No side stories. But when we discover the story, when we discover the true story, we really discover the truth of us. We all have a Yaakov, and we all have an Esau, and we have the Yitzchak approach, which looks at us our potential, our ideal, and we have the Rivka approach, which deals with who we really are. The tikkun is the self-control, and the tohu is the ambitious part of it. What's important? They're both important. You have to know that we have the ability for great things. but we also have to realize we have to go in an organized fashion. It's good to be ambitious. It's good to want to achieve. We also have to do it in an organized fashion. So Yitzchak recognizes the Tov potential, and Rivka understands that Tikkun organization must be in control. And now we're going to come to the final question: why the deception? Why couldn't Rivka and Yitzchak and Yaakov walk in there, with a presentation and a chart and saying, explain to Yitzchak that he was wrong? Because the answer is like this. There's a law, by the way. If you notice in the Torah, it always says, and God said to Moshe, saying. Why does it always say saying? Because say to the Jewish people. Because unless God instructs the prophet to say the prophecy, because many times Hashem spoke to a prophet, and not every time was that prophecy communicated to everyone. It was only when Hashem instructed the prophet to communicate that prophecy that he was allowed to do so. If God did not instruct him to do so, he was not allowed to share that prophecy. So Rivka, if you remember in the beginning, went to the prophet, and the prophet told her about the two nations fighting, the contention. Yitzchak did not know that prophecy. So Rivka understood that the elder serving the younger, and that the spiritual must rule over the material. That's something that Rivka was in tune to, that Yaakov didn't know. So Yitzchak is looking at the world pre-sin in the Garden of Eden, and Rivka is looking at the world post. So now, in order for Yaakov to speak Esau's language, Yaakov has to act like Esau. Let me tell you something else that the Chassidus explains. On a deeper level, if you remember from the first class, how did the snake get Chava to eat from the tree of knowledge? It was subterfuge, trickery, deceivery, and that's how the concept of evil was submished into the world. In order for the world to be rectified, in order for the world to be elevated to its pre-sin state, we have to go through the same path. We have to use, Yaakov understood, and Rivka understood that we have to go through the deceivery, we have to go through the trickery to utilize the tools that evil is using in order to perfect it. Look at text number 7, page 94. Jacob's cunning was necessary in order to correct the sin of the tree of knowledge, which also came through the cunning enticement of the serpent, and which caused the cautioning of all worlds and the intermingling of materialism and spirituality. To rectify this, Jacob turned the tables, drawing down spirituality into supernal power into materialism. So now we can understand why the deception. Yitzchak sees the holiness, the realm of the pre-garden state. Rivka sees the world the way it has become. So she employs Yaakov to put on the hands of Esau. You gotta act like Esau. You gotta go on Esau's terms. Sometimes you got to. I was listening to a story. This kid who unfortunately was child abused, and he was on drugs, and it was in a very, very bad place. His parents didn't know what to do. Baruch Hashem, the kid is recovered now. He's doing a lot better. And in a speech, because he's speaking to parents of troubled youth, he's talking about how the turning point was his parents accepting him how he was, and what did his parents do to show their love? They bought him, based on the advice of psychologists, they bought him a marijuana bong. And he thought, wow, my parents are really cool. The parents had, to make the breakthrough, that the parents love the kid no matter what, you have to talk the kid's language, which meant to buy him drug paraphernalia. So in order for Yaakov to talk Esau's language, he had to do what Esau was doing. Question for discussion on page 94. Should we care about material success? Yes, obviously. Is it possible to succeed in business or in any endeavor requiring material resources if one does not care?
No.
Obviously, obviously no. So, so if you answer no to question 1 and no to question 2, then you have the same problem as Jacob. Jacob, they don't care about material success. But if you don't care about it, you can't have success. You can't have success. You have to be invested. Jacob has to put on the clothing of Esau. He has to steal that. He has to steal that those blessings. So we become like Yaakov. Where are we? We come back about like Yaakov, and we care about the world. So our task is have to pursue materialism, and you have to care about material success. But that's not our main goal. The main goal is we're supposed to utilize material success in order to elevate the world. So yes, we're invested in the material world, but that's not the ends. That's only a means to an end.
Lesson 3. Jacob and Esau. 1. The two kingdoms embodied by the biblical Jacob and Esau exist on many levels. As the historic nations of Judea and Rome, as the spiritual and material perspectives on life, as the altruistic and selfish instincts in the human psyche, and as the cosmic worlds of Tikkun and Tohu. 2. Everything is composed of light and vessels, the pure energy of the thing and the structures and the mechanisms through which it operates. But there are two models of existence. The Tikkun model is one of scant light and abundant vessels, meaning that the vessels contain and focus their energies. In the Tohu model, there is abundant light and scant vessels, meaning that the driving energy is constantly bursting free of the structures through which it is meant to operate. 3. Each model has its advantages and disadvantages. Tikkun is harmonious and orderly, but constrained. Tohu is innovative and limit-breaking, but also strife-ridden and unstable. An additional disadvantage to the Tohu model is that it is prone to corruption, resulting either in the dissipation of its energies or in their exploitation by evil. 4. Because Tohu preceded Tikkun, we can tap the advantages of both models, drawing on the powerful Tohu elements present in our Tikkun reality as remnants of an earlier world. But this is also the reason that the Jacob in us, our instincts for spirituality and altruism, faces an uphill battle in its efforts to master the more primordial Tohu forces in our eternal Esau, the unbridled passions of the animal soul, the uncontainable force of the human ego, and the unsatisfiable ambitions of a materialistic life. 5. Isaac believed that Tohu and Tikkun could coexist side by side, each blessed with resources to fully develop its realm in accordance with the divine plan for creation. Rebekah, however, understood that the material world that is ruled by materialists will not rise to its true purpose, but will descend into corruption. The powerful resources of Tohu can only be redeemed when Jacob is made master of Esau. 6. In our own lives, we need to internalize both sides of the Isaac-Rebekah argument. Like Isaac, we need to recognize the powerful potential for good that lies in our Tohu self. Like Rebekah, we need to understand that in order to properly utilize this potential, we have to place our Tikkun self firmly in control of our lives. 7. Every time we interact with the material world, we reenact the drama of the stolen blessings. We become a spiritual Jacob who assumes the guise of a materialistic Esau in caring about the material success for the ulterior motive of making our world a holier, more godly place.
exercise for the week. Before starting your workday, take a minute to shift your focus from the need to earn money, provide for your material needs toward a spiritual goal that your material earnings will serve. Steal, quote unquote, a few new minutes from your material occupations to do something spiritual. Study Torah, pray, do a mitzvah. Start your day with Shema and spend time, take 5 minutes in the middle of the day to learn. That is how, or it's important to daven mincha, that is how we steal time and we realize that our material lives serve a greater purpose. Next week, we are going to get into another sibling controversy. That is the story of Yosef and his brothers. Great, drawn-out story. The second half of the book of Genesis so is all about that. Hope you enjoyed it. And don't forget to register for the Hanukkah programs. Miss you guys. All the best. Have a good week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.